This is Mr. MegaManFan. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. You know all the things to do. Where to even start with this one? Well, I suppose I should start by telling you that a couple of years ago now, my friend Dave from Pixelcraft Games sent me an email and said, "Hey, I am working on a new game that I would like you to feature on the channel." And I had previously featured The Adventures of Panzer 2 for NES, which you may have just seen in a YouTube short a couple of hours ago. Well, that's not a coincidence because I'm reviewing his latest game, The Adventures of Panzer Frontiers, tonight. However, this is, as I noted, a couple of years overdue. I went through my old emails in January and I saw the one from Dave and I sent him an apology and I said, "I know this is really late. I know you were going to do a Kickstarter for the game and you wanted me to preview it before it went live, but if it's of any consolation to you, I could still do a video about it now." And he said, "Haha, no worries," almost quoting there. He said, "In fact, I've refined the game quite a bit since then, and I'd be happy for you to check out the latest version and share it with your viewers. You know what? Your videos were what helped me to keep going when I was doing Panzer 2, so thank you for that, and please enjoy this sample copy of the game." And considering how generous and magnanimous he was about me being tardy on this, how could I say no? So we are looking at The Adventures of Panzer Frontiers today on Mr. MegaManFan. I will, of course, put a link to Pixelcraft Games in the description if you want to get a copy of this game for yourself and play it and enjoy it. But first, you're going to see the gameplay footage, which is our protagonist Panzer and his friends who are now deciding to live life cowboy style. They want to be on the run, riding horses, shooting outlaws, and collecting bounties. So how are they going to go about that? Well, this way. It's an auto-scroller where you're picking up items and avoiding obstacles and shooting at the bad guys when they show up on the screen. Each of the protagonists has a different set of abilities. Panzer is sort of in the middle. Kenkaro can move faster and has a little more health. Blarg can move the slowest but has the most health and does the most damage. So you have to pick which one you want to use to progress through these stages. As you can see, I got wiped out pretty quick here in my first try. And eventually, no disrespect to the titular protagonist of these games, I decided Panzer wasn't the right balance for me because I needed more hit points and more movement. So I ultimately went with Kenkaro, and then I switched again later, but I'll get to that in a minute. The thing I want to point out here is the excellent visual design. We've got multiple layers of scrolling objects, which if you've ever tried to program a game, and I haven't for at least 30, 40 years, and I was programming in BASIC at the time, so the idea of parallax scrolling or multiple scrolling backgrounds was not even something a pre-teen or teen Mr. MegaManFan was really concerned with writing basic games on a Commodore 64. In fact, I wasn't even programming sprites. All of my games that I made back in those days were using ASCII art, so this is at a level far above me, however you make NES games, whether it's coding in assembly or with NES Maker or whatever method you use, certainly above the level and the pay grade I was at back then. And anything that has multiple layers of scrolling on an NES game, you know, takes some finesse. So my hat's off to Dave and to Pixelcraft for making this possible. It looks very stylish and it plays very smoothly. There's no hiccups in the frame rate. We've got an excellent soundtrack here to accompany the game. And the difficulty, I would say, is fair. Just because you see me bad at it in my first attempts doesn't mean it's a bad game. It reminds me of Battletoads, and I mean that as a compliment because I think we all know the very infamous tunnel in Battletoads where you have to know the timing of the obstacles and they come at you a million miles an hour, but that doesn't mean it's unplayable. That just means you have to learn the pattern, and once you get it down and your reflexes get fast enough, you can do it. It just takes timing and practice and repetition. So, any of the barriers and obstacles that you have to jump over in Panzer Frontiers are similar to that. There's also a mistake I was making, which I can see watching back my own footage, and perhaps me telling you will help you with your own playthrough of the game. The sections where you're jumping over obstacles, you feel like you're running, but when there's a battle, you shouldn't treat it like you're still running. I felt like I was still moving forward, even though you should really think of it as a fixed screen and you're hunting down your enemy, and whichever direction you're facing is the direction you're shooting. So even though everything is still scrolling past you, make the adjustment in your brain that you're no longer doing an auto-scrolling section. Like right here, you look like you're still running, but you're really not. You just need to shoot down these outlaws in the train and not worry about the fact that everything is scrolling forward. Make your mind make the break between auto runner and gunner and just shoot down these enemies. Treat these boss battles, mini fights, whatever you want to call them, like a Contra end stage boss where you're no longer moving forward, you're just shooting at an enemy and avoiding their fire. Thinking of it that way, I think I'll do better next time, and maybe you'll do better than I did when you see this footage. Now here's a genuine criticism of the game that Dave may or may not agree with. I already mentioned that whatever direction you're moving is the direction you're shooting. Well, that is counterintuitive to how we play games in the modern era, and I realize the NES doesn't have dual analog sticks or anything of the sort, but it would be really nice if you could move and aim in different directions instead of only shooting in the direction you're moving. For example, I'd like to be able to move left and right when the outlaws are in the train and just fire up all the time instead of firing to the right when I move to the right and firing to the left when I move left. I'd like to strafe, if that's the term, I think it is, that I just want to run back and forth firing up. But since it aims in whatever direction I'm moving, I can't do that. And it's too late for that to be made a change in the game, even if I wanted it to be. So I don't expect Dave to do anything about that, or anybody at Pixelcraft Games to take my complaint to heart. It's just something I'm going to have to get used to as I play this game more. But it feels counterintuitive to the way I've come to play games. I really got to put myself in that NES mindset when I'm playing this. I guess the only way that could be solved, if it was even going to be implemented, would be if you could lock your aim in a certain direction. Like if there was a key you could push, like select and lock it in that position, and then you could unlock it by hitting select again. Then you could strafe, running back and forth with your fire locked in one direction. But again, too little too late. I don't think they can implement that now, and I'm not asking them to. I'm just saying that's what occurs to me when I remember my playthrough and watch back my own footage. I was kind of wishing that was a thing. I suppose I was also a little bit surprised that this wasn't another platforming game, and I appreciate that because changing up the style from one NES game to another in a franchise was something that Mario did very successfully. Now, accidentally, because they pulled Super Mario Bros. 2 before they released it in the West when they went, this is way too hard and North Americans are going to hate it, so let's give them a reskin of Doki Doki Panic, and we'll call that Super Mario Bros. 2. But accidentally, they created the idea that one Mario game could be completely different from the next Mario game. So if a company as big as Nintendo could do that, why can't Pixelcraft Games do that? So I applaud Dave for not making another platformer, even if that's maybe what I was expecting even back then when he first emailed me. So I really enjoy the creativity on display here. So I did notice occasional slowdown when there were multiple sprites on the screen at the same time, but that's something that's a normal limitation of NES games, even ones with enhancement chips on the inside. That is to be expected. Mega Man stages are notorious for having slowdown if you have multiple enemies on the screen, and unless you are using something where you can purposefully tell it to ignore the limitations and or overclock it, you're going to see that. So I don't mind that it's an authentic NES game in that respect, in that if too many things are going on at once, it's going to slow way the hell down. That's normal, and in some cases that's actually appreciated because you can use the slowdown to your advantage if there's a certain enemy that you want to fight and they're moving too fast for you. You can purposefully engineer slowdown for your play. Now, eventually I did tire of using Kinkaro and decided I needed to try something different to see if I could make any more progress with a different character. So I switched over to Blarg, and I found that Blarg actually works really well for my play. Even though they are clearly the slowest of the three, Blarg has way more hit points and does way more damage, so I think, for me at least, not being able to clear obstacles or move up and down the screen as fast as the other two is a limitation I'm willing to accept, because Blarg is a tank, and I made much more progress with Blarg than I did with anybody else, so I'm probably going to keep playing as Blarg from this point forward, but it's a really fun game. I can see the finesse that Dave and Pixelcraft put into this, and why Dave is so proud of it and was more than willing to send me a ROM to show off and share with everybody else. So, as I did before with the Adventures of Panzer 2, I'm going to encourage Dave to keep on making games, because homebrew games are one of the things that I really enjoy about NES collecting, and I think I'll get a physical copy of this at some point. There's a 50-50 chance that Dave will probably offer to send me one, and I'm going to say, no, let me buy it. You already sent me Panzer 2 to say thank you for my last video. The least I could do this time is buy a copy of the game myself. So once I have the spare cash to do so, I will. But in the meantime, check this game out for yourself. I'm Mr. MegaManFan, and as always, thank you for watching.